one of the most precious parks in Africa is home to many of the planet's most endangered animals. These men are trying to kill them. This is the story of one British soldier who takes on a mission impossible: to face crazed militias and a corrupt army, halt the mass extermination of wildlife, and create a Garden of Eden out of the ashes of conflict.
Everything you touch here is tainted. Somebody in authority is doing something illegal. It's only a matter of time before the bullets start flying.
Can a hired gun save Africa's wildlife? I've been covering the Congo for 15 years. I was last here 2 years ago to report on a war which left at least 3 million dead. I've come back because however terrible their lives are, the Congolese never give up, and we should never give up on them. Today there's a sort of peace, but chaos and corruption is starving the Congolese of the elements for their recovery, their minerals and wildlife. The Virunga National Park, home to the last of the planet's mountain gorillas, is a World Heritage Site. Tourism could help fuel the nation's recovery. But its animals are being slaughtered at an alarming rate. It's not hopeless. Amid the horrors, ordinary people have made noble efforts to protect their heritage, often at great personal risk. More than 100 rangers have been killed protecting the wildlife in the eastern Congo over the last 5 years.
This is Makokia. She's one of surviving only 20 lowland gorillas living in the mountains here in the Virunga. They're the most threatened species of gorillas on Earth. All of the gorillas in this group have got names that reflect Congo's history. The silverback is called the firstborn. Another one is called Not a Decent Living Person, from the days when they had war and poaching. And the last born is called Reconciliation, because the Congo now has some kind of peace. But the lifetimes of these apes depend on a very small group of men. The park rangers, they're working often without any kind of pay, frequently without food. And a lot of them feel that the whole world has forgotten them in their efforts to save these gorillas.
Deep in the Congolese jungle, a controversial new effort is being made to help keep the rangers alive, so that they can continue to defend the wildlife. They're getting British Special Forces training.
Somewhere at the end of this track is a former Royal Marine called Lieutenant Colonel Conrad Thorpe. He's being paid a pittance to retrain some Congolese park rangers to guard against poachers and bandits. He's getting less than half what he was paid in the British Armed Forces, and a complete pittance to what he could earn as a mercenary in Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm intrigued to find out what on earth motivates him.
I finally arrive at Conrad's base, an abandoned tourist resort built by the Belgians in the 50s. A former colonel in the British Special Boat Squadron, Conrad grew up in Kenya.
Pleasure meeting you.
Good to meet you. You too. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's being funded by the Frankfurt Zoo, the European Union and USAID to retrain 600 rangers and form an elite anti-poaching unit out of the best men.
I have a very passionate feeling for Africa and particularly her people. You know, I desperately want to put something back into the continent from whence I came. And I think I have a chance to do that here.
Late that night, the next batch of rangers arrived by boat for a week of training and selection. These guys have just done about 70 kilometers across the Lake Edward. It's been a choppy ride. Very few of them can swim, and a handful have turned up with AK-47s. They're expecting to get rifles here in the camp, but those are simply not going to be there. So they're going to have to mix and match and share. The rangers serve the ICCN, the Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature. Like the country itself, the ICCN is bankrupt. These men have had it incredibly tough. They have no equipment, and some rangers haven't been paid for a year. Some of them are in their 70s. It's difficult to retire men who've been working for free.
Pesa hiyo sawa kabisa. Hiyo macho umeshika kabisa.
Ndio.
Wewe uko mbali sana huko nyuma. Kwa nini? Ndio, songesha hiyo kichwa yako mbele kidogo. Songesha mbele hapa kidogo. There's no rear sight. And what's left of the foresight is almost non-existent. So this weapon is useless as well.
Conrad's having to start pretty much completely from scratch in teaching these guys to shoot. They may have been carrying weapons for 10 or 15 years, but a lot of them are looking down the rifle with the wrong eye, or the rifle itself is in a ruinous state. It's extraordinary that any of these guys are still alive, and no great surprise that the 109 have already been killed.
The rangers have been told they'll get regular meals, a regular paycheck, and new guns to defend themselves if they make it into the advanced anti-poaching unit. Competition promises to be intense.
They do it with no food and no pay. And you're expected to protect elephants, buffaloes from marauding bands of, thugs, basically. And they do it.
Why do they do it?
And they love their job, eh? And we gave them $1 each yesterday. $1. What is that, 60 pence? $1. And these guys, the morale went through the roof, man.
Every one of these rangers has seen some kind of fighting in defense of wildlife.
I got 2 bullets here because, but I had a charger, a magazine of a weapon. That bullet, the magazine stopped the 2 bullets.
Did you kill any of them?
Yes.
How many?
It was at about 5.
About 5?
Yes.
Why are you killing people to protect animals? Does that make sense?
The problem was we tried to defend ourselves. We could arrest them, but as they started by firing us, we were obliged to defend.
So this guy was speared in 96. Atamoto over there was shot in 98, 3 times, twice. 2 of the bullets didn't do him any damage. Guy over there had his finger broken and a colleague was killed. This is just a random selection of the sort of things that happen to the park rangers here.
Every ranger is assessed on his mental and physical stamina. Their rankings after every challenge are carefully logged. Only the best will make it into the elite team.
Agus! Gosh!
It's more than just a job. Christian Lukasha from Goma is a ranger who's willing to risk all.
Et il y a beaucoup de gardes qui sont morts pour les parcs, mais malgré la mort des gardes, on ne peut pas laisser et on ne peut pas craindre de protéger notre parc. Et si c'est du problème, si c'est la mort, si c'est quoi, j'ai choisi de travailler pour le parc.
Conrad's training mission hasn't come a moment too soon. There have been reports of serious poaching just outside the camp. The Congo's now enjoying a fragile official peace, and militia groups have reluctantly agreed to join a national army, but other rebels still infest the forests.
We've been moving very quietly and slowly through the bush because 2 reasons. One is we don't want to come upon a bunch of elephants, scare them and get trampled. And the second is there may still be some poachers in the area.
Oh.
I stumble into the cause of the stench, the rotting, maggot-ridden carcass of a female elephant, shot by poachers.
Its value to the park is immense, and this is a cow. And in her time, she would have given birth to many calves. up to 10 possibly. The loss of a cow is a double whammy.
I mean, has she been riddled with bullet holes, or is it a clean
She
shot?
hasn't. She's been shot well. The evidence that I've seen on her thus far suggests that she was shot by just a few rounds. Yeah.
God, let's get out of here. I can't.
Yeah, it's pretty grim, eh?
Whoa.
This animal wasn't killed for its meat. It hasn't been butchered. Someone killed it for cash in the form of ivory.
Nafikiria ni pengine ni nani?
Sijui
Hata kufikiria.
kufikiria.
Tembo ni ya nani hapa?
Tembo ya guvernema Congo.
Wenda salama.
Ndio.
Pita.
Merci.
Years of war have taught the Congolese to beware of all men bearing arms. It's unlikely that Conrad will get the answers he's looking for.
Get anything out of him?
He's too frightened, you know.
They've cut off the trunk.
That's her mouth. They've cut her trunk off and taken the tusks out, yeah. You can see her eyelashes. The very game that could lead to the recovery of the country is being destroyed because the people are so poor. 95% of these people have no work. The army hasn't been properly remunerated or paid a recompense or anything else, and this is your only source of income. Mama, unasikiaje ukiona tembo ikiuawa? Just too frightened. Look at them running, man.
Yeah.
I don't think and I don't feel. How can you, you know, they're so frightened, poor buggers. What we want to do here is not to squeeze people. That's not what this is about. This is about providing education. This is much more long-term. This is about providing the communities around here with an alternative to killing and cutting down the park, etc. It's really reasserting the authority that was here and has been lost through negligence and through war. When an elephant's killed just 8 kilometers from you, there's a cockerel quite close to you, preening his feathers. And that's showing a huge disrespect, but it's also showing a haughtiness as well, that they can get away with this sort of thing. Yeah.
Would you like to go after them?
Would I like to go after them? Of course I would, yeah. These people are a threat not just to the wildlife, they're a threat to the very people that exist here as well. Essentially, they're bullies. Yeah. I've always had an issue with bullies.
But here in the heart of darkness, Conrad will find catching the bullies a bigger challenge than he ever expected. In the heart of the Congo, one British soldier, Conrad Thorpe, is trying to save Africa's unique natural heritage.
Extremely special.
Rangers from parks across the country have gathered in the hope of being selected for Conrad's new elite anti-poaching unit. The competition now moves to the Rangers. Conrad has only 9 months to train and select 60 of the best Rangers. It's an uphill struggle. Their wartime experiences have made the men nervous around live ammunition. Everyone's a little jumpy. Accidents can be terminal.
This is a homemade butt that somebody has fixed onto an old AK-47. They're trying to defend the park against people who've got mounted machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, various other forms of anti-tank weapon. Look at that. Shows willing, though, doesn't it?
Policing the Congo is almost impossible. It's the size of Western Europe. The parks are scattered across the country. Most of the rangers are being drawn from the Virunga National Park in the east, the home of the near-extinct mountain gorilla. The 200-mile-long park sits on the dangerous borders with Rwanda and Uganda. It includes Lake Edward, where Conrad has his camp, at Ishango. Most of the warring factions from the Civil War have agreed to join the National Army. No one is ever quite sure whose side it's on. armed groups extort money from civilians. Near Ishango, it's the army which charges for fishing rights and takes a toll from children collecting firewood in the park. For all the killing, the Congo's population is again exploding. Yet you don't see many teenagers. That generation was lost to the wars. It's going to be hard to explain to these poor and hungry masses why they shouldn't eat wild animals and farm in the park. Park rangers can expect to be unpopular with their civilian neighbours, and their families living close to ranger posts can expect to be attacked by militia groups hiding out in the national parks.
Bon appétit.
Just a month before I arrived, bandits raided a ranger station at Lulimbi.
La journée de l'attaque, c'était à 1h du matin. Ils sont venus, nous avons attendu beaucoup de bruit. Direct, nous avons attendu des coups de pied. La porte était sautée. Ah, commencé à nous tabasser. Nous avons dit, hey, veuillez nous laisser, nous avons l'argent. Quand tu donnes l'argent, on vous laisse. Maintenant, ils commencent à prendre tout ce qu'ils veulent. Et puis quand ils sont en train de prendre les histoires, nous avons quitté, nous avons pris foot. Au retour, ils étaient partis.
The villagers fled for their lives across a river full of hippos into Ugandan territory.
Le matin, on est venus, ils avaient pris de bonnes choses, ils ont laissé des... Oui, ils avaient tout pillé, transporté au dos, parti.
These raids leave the rangers and their families destitute. At least at Conrad's camp, they get 3 hearty meals a day. But it's the military training that matters the most. These men will need to be better in the bush and on the battlefield than much more heavily armed bandits and poachers.
Conrad's giving them their first lesson with weapons in how to conduct a patrol, which is familiar to me from my days in the Army Cadets. All the signals are the same.
Conrad gets a tip-off and sets out to try and catch some illegal fishermen. In this latest batch of trainees, some potential elite squad members are already beginning to emerge. Eli Madamba spent his career protecting gorillas in the south of the park.
From Dunk, must know how to differentiate buffaloes and
Cows.
and the cows. Yeah.
This is cow shit.
Yeah. But it's not new. Maybe two weeks.
So there we got the first sign that they're grazing cattle here in the national park. Ellie's an expert in poo analysis.
Once I'm in the jungle, I feel happy, and I know that I've decided to become a ranger in order to protect our parks, and I feel well. I'm very happy to do this job.
They slowly close in on the edge of Lake Edward. It's not illegal to fish in the park, as long as people stay away from the breeding grounds, 500 meters from the shore. There are no faked exercises here. Catching real poachers will form part of the rangers' training.
Kila mtu anaweza kusikia mimi. Hapo tunaweza kuonekana kwa rahisi na wale watu wako kwa maji. Kwa hivyo muende utaratibu sana. Kijana, shika hapa, angalia nyuma.
Conrad is hoping to catch the poachers gutting and smoking fish on the shore.
There's no one here today, so we're not going to compromise the situation. What we're going to do is go back and then come back here another day, because what we don't want to do is let them know that we've been here, and thereby they won't use this place again. That's all.
Conrad, c'est un beau type, très ardu, très courageux, très courageux. Il se donne beaucoup, il se soucie beaucoup à nous.
Conrad's rangers are at ease in the bush, The same could not be said of their performance on the range.
Jesus Christ.
We've just had one guy let rip on automatic, and it's my absolute perfect nightmare.
Stop! 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 For your safe way,
Okay, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Everybody has failed to hit a piece of A4 at 25 yards. Huh. Do you think you're actually going to be able to raise enough good men to form your anti-poaching unit?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, the first week we take 60 men on each week, and the first week we did it with 60 men, we identified 15 men. I was then very confident. The next week, again, 60 men turned up. This time, just 2 men came through as, I would say, confirmed candidates, and there was 1 possibility. So suddenly, we know we'd gone from having 15 to 2. But there again, what I've tried to do now is just rationalize them without judging too harshly. I have to remember the stock we've got here. The stock is good if identified correctly. And fortunately, we're picking blokes on a balance of mental, physical, but critically on their hunger and desire to be part of an advanced force. We're at a stage now where I'm slightly below the number where I should be after 5 weeks. It just isn't good enough.
Has Christian done enough to impress Conrad? Will he and Ellie be selected for the advanced force training? With those questions unanswered, it's time for me to leave. I promise to return in 6 months. I left Conrad with a video camera to record his experiences as his elite squad evolved. The men are getting fitter and stronger. They're sailing through endurance tests, which would floor a British Army recruit. And finally, the long-awaited guns have turned up.
The Rangers yesterday said that they had their strength back when these weapons came, and that we were going to have victory in this park, and we were going to stop all the killing of its wildlife and the cutting down of all its beautiful trees and the destruction of its habitats.
The training intensifies, and after regular patrols, our new team starts to make an impact on the poachers. But in the Congo, any armed action will be met with an armed reaction. The army pays a surprise visit to Ishango.
That visit had a single motive. Its motive was to intimidate us here at Ishango. We know that the army sits at the head of a committee, which we know as the Farming Committee, and one must pay the army money, $5 a month, not much, but it's $5 per plot, to cultivate in the park. That money is clearly going up, allegedly, although I would say clearly going up into the higher echelons of command. I've been here 6 months. I've had much talk about rebels. I have not seen a single rebel here, nor another individual bearing arms. The only rebel I know about, or am aware of, is the army. That's a very damning indictment, but I stand by my word.
When I return to Ishango, the elite squad are in the final stages of their selection, but fewer men than expected have made it into the advanced force.
In the last 6 months, 600 volunteer rangers have now been pared down to just 42 on the advanced course. They're now sitting their final exam, which comes before their final exercise. The exam questions are pretty tough. They're being asked to write down the scientific name for an elephant. They're being asked about the behavior of gorillas, sorts of questions they might get asked by tourists, but also then a series of military questions about interrogations, building up a profile of potential poachers, and what their rules of engagement are inside the park.
Weeks of weapons drills and grueling physical training have culminated in the final exercise for the park rangers. Sadly, Christian didn't make it into the advanced force, but his friend Joseph Aloma has emerged as a star recruit. Joseph came from the same base as Christian and was in charge of monitoring guerrillas. I was pleased to discover that Eli had made it and been promoted to command his own troop.
We ranger, we are different to soldiers. Yeah, you can't do not like this. No, you point well to your target and tap, only one. Tap, only one. But when you are holding a gun like this, and you are watching like this, once you see a poacher, how can you look the scene? You are wasting your time. And what Mr. Conrad have taught us, every time they say that you must hold your gun ready to fire, ready to fire.
At the end of their first day of their final exercise, Conrad and his rangers come across a fishing camp. The fish poachers are forced into the crocodile-infested river to collect their lines and nets. Conrad insists that the use of his elite force here isn't overkill.
You have to put this into context. It looks like he's just a rich man stopping a poor man fishing. Much more than that. These nets are totally indiscriminate. They catch baby crocodiles, they catch monitor lizards, they catch every amphibian that swims in here. Basically, they kill everything. And if these guys catch any of those animals, they'll eat them. It's not just about fishing. They'll be snaring on the shoreline too. So there's a lot more that's associated with these fishermen than first meets the eye.
The poachers claim that it was an inspector in the park ranger service that gave them permission to fish in the park.
What he's basically saying is that he's actually been sent here by an inspector who's up the road here in Kasindi. And he reckons he's given him the authority to come here after he helped to make his house. Basically, it's impossible to know right now whether there's some truth in that, but that's 2 days in a row that inspector's been implicated. Notwithstanding whether that inspector is guilty or not, and we'll be researching that, we'll be chasing that up. These men are illegally occupying in the park, and they're illegally fishing in the park.
So, not only does Conrad have the army to contend with, but senior park officials are now implicated in corruption and poaching. But Conrad doesn't want to see these men jailed, not in the Congo.
What you can't do is complete this process. We don't want to be taking these guys to any jail because we just know the situation there is going to be dire, you know. I haven't got a heart of stone, you know. I don't want to see these people hurt as such, eh?
No, just don't poach.
No, I just don't want them poaching. I just want this one area of Congo here, which is the only area left around here with any chance of any wildlife, specifically put aside for that express purpose to preserve the environment, to have a chance. That's all I want, you know.
So far, the new prisoners insist they've only been taking fish, but Ellie's not convinced. He leads a patrol out in search of snares.
This path is used by poachers. You can see where they cut this tree.
He's quickly onto something.
You can't see if you are not habituated to work in the bush. You can't see, and it can catch you. Yeah, when you want to cross this place, you put your foot here.
Like a landmine. Look at that. Look how it's caught. Brilliant.
You see?
Incredibly clever design.
But this, it must be for buffalo.
For buffalo?
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of game left, as you know. There's going to be even less left if we let this happen. Right, this whole area, we need to do a sweep of it. This is a key area. Kunangini. Ah, yeah, another one. This area is infested with them.
The poachers have been after big game.
This trap is absolutely at a choke point on this trail here, which is a hippo trail. At night they come out of the river, come up on the grass to graze. There's no way that any hippo travelling on this pass would have been able to avoid that trap. No, it's just that.
Conrad now believes that the fishermen were behind the trapping of wild animals. The question now is, who are they working for?
They know everything about us, and we must know everything about them. We study each other. Every day must come here until they will be very tired and say that, okay, we have this activity of poaching, so the park can be solved.
Interrogating prisoners and gathering information is a specialist job. To train his men, Conrad has recruited Paul Naish. He's a veteran of the Rhodesian War and of South African military intelligence.
Give you a shot when you're ready.
Another gun for hire who's joined Conrad is Mike Roberts, a former British paratrooper. He's fluent in Swahili and will help Paul interview the prisoners.
I'm going off to the camp where that snare was found, and I'm taking one of them. But don't expect miracles. These two lads proved uphill, and we got all sorts of lies told to us. And without this extra evidence that you've now produced, we were basically grasping straws. Okay, just bring him in that one snare. See it on. At long last, the training that we've given them is bearing fruition. A hippo weighs 3 tons, and to trap a hippo involves a lot of ingenuity and a lot of manpower insofar as that when it comes to the actual skinning of the hippo, the gutting of the hippo, the carrying of the meat, there must be at least other 10, maybe even 20 people involved. So, what conclusion do you draw? The conclusion you draw is that in this area, there is helpers, accessories. Now, where are these accessories? Where are these helpers? They must be here.
The rangers know only one form of interrogation, and it's nasty and brutal. To intimidate the prisoner, they put a snare around his neck.
Sasa mimi nakuuliza kuhusu ile mitego wale huwa nayo swala. Mliongea nabo wanakuambia mwende mtege file shi tutawafuata nyuma. Hapana. Haiko wewe ndio unaniambia vile. Sema hivi nilisema ndio sisi tunakuja kutega ile mafile. Sema hivi.
The interrogators are trying to establish whether this guy is part of a bigger poaching ring which is run by a man that he's named in a nearby village who's made these very complex traps. He continues to insist that he is just an ordinary fisherman trying to feed his family. The interrogators and Paul Naish are not convinced. They think he's very much part of a bigger poaching operation.
Sasa tukienda ona wale watu tukivashika nabo bakibashitaki aseme na nyie mnategaka kwa ile nyama tutawafanya nini? Tunabaua Katekere na wengine mbele tuende kule. Mimi naanje kuambia kama tunabashika huko wanasema mnategeka mitego nabo uyue kama tutakuua. Unasikia?
Paul isn't happy with this interrogation. So far the rangers haven't been given any human rights training.
Does he indicate anybody in the parks who might be involved?
Yeah, he has. He's named 5. Obviously, we have to look at that one quite carefully because at the same time, it could be, well, the rangers said I could come in here, so what have I done wrong? But now what has turned up, we've got other leads and, well, who knows, in a week's time, we could still be chasing up yet more leads. It doesn't stop.
Slow process.
Yep.
I'm not convinced this man is a poaching kingpin, and I've noticed his hands are almost paralysed.
This damage is nerve damage, which is from a technique called akinyole, which is a Rwandan word, and they tie their elbows behind them, and it causes catastrophic nerve damage. You can lose your arms, and frequently your respiratory system also collapses. I've seen hundreds of people with this injury.
The prisoner told me his hands had been ruined when he'd been forced to work as a slave for a Ugandan militia. He's agreed to lead the rangers to other poachers he knows. But what of our prisoners? Are they, as Conrad believes, part of a more organised and sinister poaching ring? In the heart of the Congo, one British soldier, Colonel Conrad Thorpe, is on a mission. He's got a lead to poachers in the hills surrounding the Congo's most valuable park. Conrad seems convinced that the army is behind the poaching. Based on my experience over 15 years covering the Congo, I'm not so sure.
So far in this short search of the alleged poacher's house, we found these two cables. They could be used for hunting anything from an elephant down. It's a whole series of very well organised fishing hooks, some small snares, a pile of guinea fowl feathers, a big gauge net for the capture of birds, small gauge fishing net. Now the two worst things about this are those two snares there, which can't be used for anything outside of the park.
They don't find any guns, and there certainly doesn't appear to be any link with the army. This is poaching for sure, but I can't help feeling it's got more to do with survival than big profit. Paul has now taught his rangers that they'll get more information out of their prisoners with kindness rather than brutality.
Ile kosa ni yako wewe peke njoo unaitika makosa yako pale. Unasikia? Kosa yote ya mweneo yako pale ni yako.
They do their best to convince their prisoner that they're not actually going to kill him.
Kosa yako ile. Mimi nakubali basi. Kama ni maisha
si hatupendi kuongea mengi.
Wewe hapana kuongea maneno hapa.
Kuambia maisha kunaisha, nani anakuambia maisha?
Haitaisha ni kuitika tu.
Sisi tuliompo hakika.
Tuko information
ndio tulitaka tu. Hakuna ingine maneno.
But the prisoner remains so afraid that whatever the rangers say, he wets himself in fear.
Roki yangu naishia pale.
Naishia pale.
Shida nyingine.
Unametea usema unafanya mbaya kweli kutia singa ndani ya pale. Unaitika?
Mimi naitika.
Okay.
Ndaitika. Na hiko yangu hata. Na ingine banakiuliza.
Because no one wants to see the poachers end up in a Congolese jail, they're given a small fine and released.
Le laisser comme ça, ce n'est pas bon parce que demain ou trop tard, il va se retourner dans la forêt. Donc on peut sensibiliser quelqu'un et reconnaître sa faute, c'est tout. Pas sans amende, il n'y a pas de problème. Parce que s'il vient de quitter à la station et reconnaître sa faute et le sensibiliser seulement, ça aussi c'est bon. Ça aussi c'est bon.
Today's operation was a success in that it showed the rangers who are under training that information gathering never has an end. There's a beginning, but it never ends. It's a continuous, ongoing cycle. But we put a presence on the ground. We showed them that the ICCN is meaning business. And you'll see it. You'll see how much the Africans that have been under training appreciate their efforts. There is a good heart that beats there.
So the rangers are learning some respect for human rights, but I can't help feeling that there remains a danger they could turn into a brutal militia like any other in the Congo. So I look forward to the arrival of Rob Muir, the country director for Frankfurt Zoological Society. He set up the entire ranger training program.
Bonjour, bonjour. Bonjour, Rob. Comment ça va?
I asked him if he thought it wise to establish what looked like a private army.
It's not a private army, and it's not an army for Frankfurt. It's a matter of training ICCN rangers, providing them with the best training that we possibly can, that will keep them safe.
Isn't there a danger that this little group that you're training up is going to become as much a part of the problem as all the other armed militias running around?
No, I don't think so at all. For a start, these guys have got an inbuilt, innate integrity, if you like, attached to them. They've been working in the park for 30, 40 years, most of them, sometimes more. They really have the heart of conservation. They're here to protect the wildlife. They're not here as part of a political tool. The other reason why I wanted to bring Conrad in, he's British military, ex-British military, and discipline and integrity, self-belief, and self-control are the cornerstones of British military training. So the Rangers have the discipline to be able to avoid getting sucked in to this kind of game that we see played out by militia troops and so on.
Attempts to steal from the Congo don't stop with poaching. Criminal gangs are also literally stealing the ground from beneath the wildlife. Conrad gets a tip-off about an illegal mining operation in the park close to the border with Uganda.
So here's the mine they've been talking about. Nobody's quite sure what it is that they're mining. The entire region of eastern Congo is absolutely heaving with natural resources, and for the people here, that's been the curse. There's Colombo tantalite, without which you cannot make mobile phones or laptops or anything that uses a silicon chip. There's gold, there's oil, and there's timber. And an awful lot of all of that is in these national parks.
Locals say the mining is for building materials, but soon we find hundreds of concealed bags of a mysterious ore.
If we leave it here, it's going to go, and it makes our efforts ineffective. We've got to do it. We've found it. This is an exhibit. It's got to go. And they must please explain.
The villagers finally tell us that the mining operation is being run by a Ugandan, with the knowledge of a Park Service inspector.
As ever, what's interesting is that there's complicity and involvement at every level, including in the ICCN, amongst various officers, etc. Who are clearly using their positions of authority to their own personal advantage. Everything you touch here is tainted with somebody in authority is doing something illegal.
This is a chance for Conrad to make a difference, and he seizes it. After a quick call to his Congolese bosses, Conrad gets permission to dump the ore in the lake. The men can't resist celebrating what they see as a local victory.
C'est un bon résultat, puisque le propriétaire de ces sacs, là où il est à ce moment-ci, il est en train de pleurer. Il pleure vraiment. Il a donné beaucoup d'argent pour qu'on puisse extraire le minerai ici dans le parc. Maintenant, il pleure. Ah ouais, ça c'est bon.
Do you think, realistically speaking, that the Congo was ready for a sort of operation that you've been running in the last 6 months?
Funny, I've thought about that, eh? Sometimes I think it wasn't ready, and then other times I think, well, if you didn't do it, if people didn't make these bold ventures into places like this, there would never be any hope, eh? Nothing would ever get done. Unless anybody actually stands up and stands firm with 2 feet on the ground and says, the buck stops with me, it's never going to stop.
After a 20-mile endurance run, the elite squad's training is finally over. It's time for Conrad to leave. I asked Joseph what the colonel's legacy will be.
Nous sommes prêts à défendre notre institut. Donc, de libérer tous les terrains qu'on a déjà envahis, même de lutter contre nos bêtes qui se trouvent dans la forêt. C'est pourquoi, comme nous sommes ici, je vois que si nous sommes bien encadrés, les forces avancées vont remettre notre institut à la place.
You have that confidence? Yeah. Tu as la confiance?
Oui, j'ai confiance à ça.
Vijana, mumefaulu!
But Conrad's departure has also left the Rangers worried about their future.
J'ai beaucoup confiance avec notre entraînement ici, avec notre force avancée. Beaucoup de confiance avec mes collègues gardes.
Moral!
Vous savez, une autre chose qui est là, quand vous formez les gens, il faut aussi s'occuper de ces gens-là. Vous pouvez former les gens, ils deviennent très forts, mais après la formation, vous les laissez. Alors, quel sera donc le futur pour les forces avancées?
33 rangers from the anti-poaching unit are now fighting in the north to protect the Congo's last one remaining white rhino. Paul Naish is returning to train another group. Conrad was also asked to stay and lead the men he'd trained, but for the time being, he's resisting the call of the wild.